You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt Migaki, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm recording this on a Monday, the day this episode drops, and wow, I hope my voice is doing okay. It feels really, really scratchy. I spent the weekend at NAMM, had a great time. You can see that documented all over any Tone Mob social stuff, except for Twitter, because I never post on there hardly. But Instagram and the Facebook group, I've talked about a lot of the things I saw and tried to keep everybody up to date. But I then flew home. My plane landed around 4-something, and who should be playing about 35-40 minutes away but the Rockin' Tours. And I had a friend of the show, Trey, from Retroactive Pedals. He was on a few episodes back, or it might have been a couple months ago. If you go back and look, you'll find him. Great episode. He was actually doing drum tech work for that tour, this tour that kind of was a big surprise with the album release and all that stuff. And that was the band he referenced on the episode when he said, I don't know if I can say anything about that yet. That's what he was talking about, and he was able to get me into the show. Got to hang out with Jess and Leon and my good friend Joshua, who I don't refer to enough on this show because he's a drummer, not a guitar nerd, but we all hung out. That was a great time, and it was really fun to get to see one of our mutual. We all have a little bit varying musical tastes, and it was nice to be able to all come together and see one of our personal musical heroes all together as a band, and that was a lot of fun to get to. That was the first time any of us had seen Jack White play, and the man is just a force on stage. So if you ever get the chance to catch him live, I had a blast. They just rocked my face off. It was incredible. But anyway, my voice is kind of scratchy, so I'll stop recording this intro. But here on this episode, I talk with David from DroloFx. He's making some really cool stuff out of Belgium. Belgian? No, I want a Belgian. Yum. Out of Belgium. And I will just shut up and stop hurting my own throat and let you guys enjoy this episode we recorded just before I left for NAMM. So I hope you guys get a kick out of this. And if you want more of this conversation, of course, we recorded some over on Patreon. So you can go over to patreon.com/tonemob if you want to hear more of this conversation. And I think once you hear David's voice, you're going to want him to read everything to you. It's you're just going to want his voice to narrate your life. He's got a wonderfully soothing voice. I love it. But yeah, I'll be done, and I hope you can enjoy this part of the program. Here's Mr. David Rolo. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar tone and the people behind it. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have David Rolo from DroloFx. What's going on, my man?
Hello. What's going on? Well, things are good. I'm a bit sick and tired and high on allergy medicine.
Okay.
It's that time of the year where all the allergies combine into a super force that tries to knock me down.
I just assumed that all of you Europeans had already. You guys are a much more advanced society than us Americans, and I was thinking maybe you'd just taken care of that allergy thing already.
Yeah, in the Scandinavian countries, they have some fancy chips burned into their skulls, but we don't have that that stuff here. We're much more bare bones.
The Scandinavian countries, they're always just like 7 steps ahead of everybody else, aren't they? It seems.
Yeah, they do some crazy stuff.
They are. They're crazy. So for the listeners, you are in Belgium, correct?
Yes, that's in Europe.
Oh, that's not in Florida?
No. I just wanted to clear that out.
Okay. Yeah, that was I thought you had a really strange Florida accent, but that just threw off everything. It shows what I know.
See, everything has an explanation.
Everything has does everything have an explanation? I'm not sure if everything does. What do you think?
I think everything has one, but we don't know all of the explanations. Some of them we can't really find out yet.
Whether we're smart enough is probably the deciding factor, is what
probably.
You're saying.
Yep.
Well, but before we get too heavy into something as elaborate as whether or not we have all the answers, perhaps we could start from a simpler place, and that would be the classic place where all the new guests start from, and that is, what is your musical backstory? How did you get to where you are today, especially you making these crazy devices? Tell me the whole thing.
I used to... When I was a kid, I used to listen to whatever. I mean, whatever was on the radio. I didn't have any particular genre or something that I was particularly fond of. My parents did listen to music, but also nothing very specific. So it was just all over the place. I have a vague memory of seeing an image of Elvis Presley, like sliding on his knees and then being really cool. But as I grew up, I don't know if it was really Elvis Presley or maybe Kevin Bacon in Footloose. So I might be a bit confused there with my childhood references.
It counts. It still counts either way. That's fine.
Yeah. But I think the first really, targeted music that I listened to was heavy metal. When I was 12, I changed school and my buddy was way into heavy metal. So we were going into those things together. At that time, it was a lot of, Iron Maiden, Metallica, and these things.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, it just kind of evolved into every possible direction. I really have no very specific pattern of things that, like a plan or anything. I've always been curious about music, and so I've listened to all kinds of stuff. After the really, isolating heavy metal thing, I started to listen to more mainstream stuff like, I don't know, U2 and things like that. And I think what got me into guitar playing is when I got to the Led Zeppelin stuff and things like that. I think that's when somehow things started to take shape in my head in terms of how music is actually created. Because up to that point, I had like a fascination towards guitars, but not really knowing how the sounds were made with the guitar. I just like to window lick guitar shops and dream about having one, but I had never touched a guitar or anything. So it was just like a strange object that I knew made sounds, but that was everything. And actually, my first guitar that I ever had was a kind of a a decoration guitar. It was not a real guitar that you're supposed to play on. And I remember we bought it in Spain as we were traveling to Portugal, because I was born in Portugal. And, sometimes I drove there with my parents, and you have all those service areas where in Spain especially they have all those crazy shops with souvenirs and guitars and stuff. And one day I bought a guitar, and it did make sounds, and I started to try to recreate sounds that I would hear in certain songs. But that was that. I didn't get a real guitar for a while after that, and I think it was when I was 16. I just had a friend of mine who asked me if I knew someone who would like to buy a guitar that he had, an electric guitar. And I said, yep, that's me. And I bought it. And yeah, from there on, I started playing, trying to, to play the things that I heard on the records. Just play to the records. I didn't have an amp, so at first I just played the electric guitar like that. And then I went through a phase that lasted about 1 or 2 years where I destroyed a lot of stuff at home when I tried to find things that I could plug the guitar into.
Yes.
So I would, for example, take a tape player, and I figured, if the magnetic head is amplified, maybe I can hook up the guitar to the magnetic head of the tape player.
Oh man!
And I should have kept some of them, because I must have created some crazy fuzz boxes at that time. But yeah, eventually I got an amp, and also an actual nice guitar, because what I had there was like a really weird Strat style guitar with really weird hardware that you don't even see in the cheapest things that you can find these days. It was really like clunky stuff that you don't know what they were thinking when they created that. But eventually I cobbled some money together and bought a Gibson Les Paul. So that was a big step up. And so that stayed my main guitar for a lot of years.
Do you remember what exactly, like, that very first one you bought from your friend was? Do you remember the brand on it by chance, or was that?
Yeah, I remember. The brand was Segovia, which I've never found anything about. I tried, like, out of nostalgia, I tried to look it up online, but I never found anything about a guitar like that. And
was it an old Japanese, one of those weird ones, or did it come from somewhere else?
I have no idea. It looked kind of not that old. It wasn't like like the vintage quirky ones that you see from the 60s and so on. So it looked kind of recent, but with really weird hardware. Like the bridge was kind of something with screws that might have been like the fine-tuning screws of a Floyd Rose, but it was absolutely not a Floyd Rose. It was really I don't even think it was a tremolo at all. It just had some weird screws on it that you could use to fine-tune your
you could adjust it if you felt like it for some reason.
Yeah, something like that. Eventually I got bored, because it was actually it was a really nice color when I think of it, but at that time I basically wanted something black and neon green or something like that. So I stripped the paint and then try to paint it in different colors. And I think in the end, because the color never stuck, so I just left it with the bare wood.
And then I don't know why I'm so fascinated by this particular instrument. I don't think I've never been so curious about someone's first kind of I don't know, for lack of a better term, budget kind of student model guitar. But it seems like you and this guitar had quite an extensive journey together. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I kind of learned a lot of chops on it. I had no clue of how a guitar was supposed to sound or how you were supposed to set it up. I knew more or less how you were supposed to tune it, but that was it. And for the rest, I just used it as a kind of a lab, trying some different things to how I could hook the pickups up and stuff like that, but not really in a very efficient way. I was just tinkering away.
So once you got the Les Paul, did you start playing in bands? Did you have any aspirations to make music your living, or how did that transpire after the Les Paul came into your life?
I did start to play in the bands not long after it. I didn't have any aspirations, but I really enjoyed playing to records. I mean, I remember I have those memories of sitting in the total darkness and putting on a record and just playing along the record from start to end, and it was really a nice way to spend time. And I eventually met some people at school, and we made a band. We created a band. It was called Average.
I like it.
Yeah.
Was that an accurate description?
Yeah, in a weird way. Because we were like very average looking people, and we didn't have like a distinct like a distinct genre or like a goal or anything like that. We just hung out and wrote whatever songs came into existence. So most of what we did was very. I mean, that was in the late 90s, so we were still a lot into the grunge thing and stuff like that, and all had influences of the classic rock stuff like Led Zeppelin and all that stuff. But we sounded kind of like I'd say like a grunge spin-off in Luxembourg, like because I was living in Luxembourg at that time. I grew up in Luxembourg. That's another country next to Belgium in Europe, by the way, for the people who may not know.
That's not just I thought that was in Minnesota, so it shows what I know.
No, it's the other Luxembourg.
Okay, the other Luxembourg. Okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, I forget. Yeah, we forget sometimes. There's other parts of the world. I'm being so facetious. Facetious. I actually love Europe and need to get over there more.
You've never been?
I have. I've been to. Okay. Well, I've been to Western Europe. I've been to England and Ireland, and that's it. That's it so far. But I need to get over and do some traveling around just to see the. It's so different, you know. You guys, like, we can drive for 5 hours and still be in my state.
Yeah, clearly.
It's just such a weird, and it changes, of course, but it's not as drastic over there. You drive 5 hours in Europe and you're on another planet, basically.
You don't have to drive 5 hours. I mean, even within a small country like Belgium, like where you can drive from one end to the other in maybe 2 hours, you find some really, really, really different places and different mentalities and landscapes. So, and in France, for example, you have like incredible diversity of landscapes and cities and things like that. And yeah,
And people too, right?
and people too. Yeah, very, very different dialects and things like that.
So before we go deep into the nature of the US versus Europe and all of the weird differences that go in there, I wanted to ask you, I seen a picture on your website and I would like to know a little more about this. You have a very it's very like cool looking, but it also gives me imagery of like mad scientists. Your shop to me is the coolest looking shop I've seen in quite a while. It's like this small, maybe it's because it reminds me of my own situation. I'm sitting in a shop, in my backyard as well, recording this. and so it was kind of like, this feels very much like the European version. I'm not sure what it is, but I seen the picture of it and I was filled with a deep sense of I need to go there and see that. That looks really cool.
Well,
So before we get too crazy on it, how did you get into building pedals and what led you to this? It seems to me, from my perspective, all of a sudden I was over at Grant Wilson's house around this time last year, and he busted out a couple Drolo pedals, and I had never seen them before. And that was my introduction to your work. And I was just going, this is crazy. But I'm guessing you didn't start out making crazy pedals. So
no.
What was the first step there?
The first step, as far as I can remember, and that was also around when I had my band in the late 90s. I think it had to do with Pink Floyd. Actually, I was way into the album Metal and the song Echoes in particular, and there's a particular sound in that, and I don't remember if it was the actual version on the Metal album or the version that came out in the. I don't know if you're familiar. They made. They made a kind of a movie where they played the songs of that area in Pompeii, in the ruins of Pompeii. And anyway, that song had a particular fuzz sound that I just couldn't fathom how to recreate. I had some bus overdrives and distortions and amp distortion, but nothing sounded nearly similar to what I was hearing there. And so there wasn't much to research on because we didn't have internet back in that time. So
right.
all our information was from magazines, basically, that I would buy. I had one or two magazines that I'd buy regularly that were about guitar and gear and stuff like that. And one of these magazines had a new section where they would show some classic circuits, schematics and stuff like that. And the first one I saw was a fuzz face. And where they also explained that would be the sound for that song that I wanted to emulate.
Okay, all right.
And I had done a bit of electronics in school, and so looking at this, it was like just a handful of components, and I thought, let's try this, and it didn't work. I couldn't get it to sound like anything that was useful, and then they had another circuit that was actually a lot more complex, and that was a Marshall blues breaker. And so there were cool articles in that magazine, because they had the schematics, but they also went over explaining all the different sections. So it was already quite advanced for just being in a regular, Guitar Gear magazine. But
Right.
that one I tried, and it worked right out of the bat. And that was crazy. I was like, wow, I made something, I made a pedal, and so on and so forth. And then from there, I started to try and find as many things that I could build. And I went back to the fuzz phase and managed to get it to work, and it was great. And they all were magnificently shabbily put together, and they sounded nice anyway. And from there, it has always been kind of my hobby. There were certain periods where I didn't do that many because I was doing something else, but I always came back to building pedals. It's some kind of weird form of therapy sometimes. Yeah, mainly stuff that I'd made for myself, that I needed or wanted to try out. And that's how I began.
That's a pretty big jump from fuzz faces to, extremely advanced Schumann PLL based devices and all the other things that you've been doing, especially the new one you've come up with recently, and the name is escaping me right now. I try not to have my phone in front of me, but now I'm like scrolling through. The Stretch. Why can't was my brain not working?
Stretch Weaver.
Stretch Weaver. I kept wanting to say Stretch Lengther. I'm like, that's not it. Like Stretch Weaver.
Yeah.
Tell me about that thing. That thing looks insane.
Yeah, that thing actually exists because I had been talking to Scott Amendola. I don't know if you were familiar with him. It's a drummer that has worked with Nels Cline and lots of people in the jazz scene and other genres. And he had bought one of my pedals, and we've been in touch ever since. And he's really a great guy, and we've been back and forth talking about stuff. And I'd send him some new chip with new sounds sometimes that I come up with, and stuff like that. And he sent me a CD of a project he had, a duo with Nels Cline, called Stretch Woven. And I'm a huge fan of Nels Cline, by the way. So when Scott first got in touch with me to buy a pedal, I was like falling from my chair, and it was really crazy because he plays in the Nels Cline Singers and so on. So it was like really mind blowing to get in touch with him. But that CD he sent me, Stretch Woven, was basically just both of them, I guess, improvising and getting crazy on their own, and recording all the stuff that came out. And while listening to that one day, I was thinking that it would be really cool to have a device where two people like that could plug into and somehow the device would make both of their sounds interact with each other, influence each other, and so on. And that's how it came to be. That's what the pedal does.
That's amazing. I think. I mean, and like I said, it's a big leap to go from something like that, or excuse me, rather from a fuzz face to something like that. And I'm just curious, like, what was the next step beyond the fuzz face? It's like, make this work. Okay, I've done that, and now I've got a pedal that is basically inspirational enough for somebody like Nels Klein to use. I feel like there's a whole big gap in there. Where was there a breakthrough moment where you realized, oh, I can do more than just make square waves or distort signals. I can make them do other things. Was there kind of an aha moment there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to think that back in the day, all that information was really hard to find. So you were lucky when you found a schematic of any kind of pedal, and in the early 2000s, you started to see forums and stuff, DIY forums dedicated to pedals, and there were people there that really did some amazing work, coupling together schematics and tracing pedals and providing incredible amounts of information and helping people. And that's really an incredible community and a richness that just wasn't there before. And so with all that information also came new technologies, like with microprocessors and stuff like that were quite inaccessible before, but with all the information that you can find online now, and also all the people that feed on that information and give back what they do with this stuff, and it's a whole process of feedback, basically, of people learning stuff, giving back to the community that learns stuff and does new stuff, and shares it again with the community, and I think that's helped a lot of stuff came to be that you see now when you see those small companies that make incredible devices that are so advanced that they surpass what you would see from big companies back in the day. I mean, until very recently, the only companies that would be doing complex digital stuff were very, very few. You had Digitech, I think, that were quite far out. But most of the other companies stuck to very very basic stuff. So they were quite big companies, so they couldn't really take a lot of chances and do the wild stuff that you can see today. I forgot what the question was. Sorry.
Oh, no worries at all. I was curious if there was an aha moment, like during a development cycle, or just a moment where you realized, oh, I don't have to make another tube screamer or another fuzz face. I can make.
I was trying to make a super cool tremolo, but I had a hard time finding an LFO, so the oscillating part that I could work with, and that's when I found out that there was a guy who has a company called Electric Druid, who provided some microchips that had a whole dedicated LFO processing chip with tap tempo and various wave shapes and stuff like that that you could buy and use, and it felt really weird to use something like that, because to me it was a bit like going from working on a bike and trying to have all the parts of the bike fit together and being well set up to working on a spaceship. But once I started to work with it, it all made sense, and it also opened my mind to a whole world of possibilities where you had digital processing that could control analog stuff, which is what I did. I had a digital control over an analog tremolo, and that's what came to be the first pedal I actually ever sold, which was a pedal called Twin Peaks, which is a tremolo. But
That's the one that Grant had, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I'm almost positive. Yeah.
That was it was a pedal I made at the time, but really I've never thought ever of going into any kind of business with pedals. I was just doing stuff that I wanted to have. But once I posted the schematics on forums and did a little demo, I started to get people asking me if I would make them one and would be willing to sell them. And that's actually the pedal that put me on the map somehow.
You seem to have a lot of passion, like in talking to you and in through just kind of trying to do a little bit of research. You seem to have a lot of passion for a sort of open source DIY community sort of thought process around building pedals, which is in contrast to some people's kind of like playing things really close to the vest and keeping things really guarded. Is that something you're passionate about? Am I reading that accurately?
Yes and no. I mean, before I started this company, I was doing a lot of projects that I shared in DIY forums. But I have to say, nowadays I'm not sharing my code for my for my effects because it feels kind of
because
like
it took forever for you to develop, and you'd feel like maybe
it's that, and also because
maybe
it's just too easy to replicate and it feels a bit like shooting yourself in the foot if you do that. I admire people who do that, because if you can make it work for yourself, I mean, if you can make it a viable solution to share your stuff, make it open source, and still make a living out of it, it's really great. And I actually would love that, but so far I've had the feeling that it wouldn't be such a good idea in my current position at the moment.
I'm inclined to agree with you.
Yeah,
putting my business hat on, I suppose I'm inclined to agree as well.
I mean, it's no rocket science either. I mean, any actual serious engineer would laugh at what I'm doing, be it in terms of hardware, like the physical electronics hardware, or be it in terms of the programming. I mean, I'm such a hack. you wouldn't believe it, but yeah, kind of get a bit protective of these things.
So being somebody who started in the analog realm and eventually dove into the heavy DSP side, do you see a lot of similarities, or is it almost two completely different skill sets in working in those two kind of areas?
Well, it's it is a completely different skill set, and the way I approach it is a very analog way of doing it, which is probably very wrong, and must put a lot of hurdles in how I go about things. I have absolutely no background in programming, so I just stumbled upon that and gnawed my way through that thing out of sheer stubbornness, and I still haven't really caught up and learned the basics of what I should actually know in order to do what I'm doing. So a lot of it is trial and error, and a lot of empirical ways of getting to places. But it's certainly not a very efficient way of doing things.
Oh, sorry, I lost you there for a second, but I think it interneted out on me for a second. I heard robots.
Okay.
But I'll cut this out. No worries. So, in kind of that same, talking about the development process and all that stuff, you recently did a project with one of my good buddies, Mr. Joel Corte of Chase Bliss, and the boys from Mold Blood. What was that like, and how did you get involved in the now very, very popular Chase Bliss mood pedal? How did that all happen?
I don't know. What was he thinking? I really don't know how he thought of me for that. But I was really very surprised and honored that Joel reached out to me. And in the beginning, I was also very intimidated because I'm never really sure of my chops. So to be like, not employed, I don't know what the word is, but like contracted to do something, was very impressive. But I did it because how could I not?
Of course.
And we worked through it, and there were some moments where I had a lot of doubts, and I thought I wouldn't be able to deliver the goods, but in the end, we always found something that worked nicely. And I guess when you have some limitations and you're not like an incredible programming guru and know exactly how to do this and that, to achieve this and that, you have to struggle a bit, and you might stumble upon accidents that actually create something that might be beautiful and that you wouldn't have found otherwise. At least that's how I'm trying to convince myself that it's okay that I do this.
It is okay, because if you think about it, and think about literally every musician you mentioned in this interview so far, 99% of what most people listen to, think of what would our musical landscape and our entire culture would look like had nobody discovered fuzz and distortion, which again happened by happy accident.
Yeah.
So I think that gives you all the justification in the world for you to do whatever you want sonically. Just go for it and see what happens, because you might you never know, somebody like you might invent the next distortion.
Yes.
And who knows where that could go? Who knows?
It's really weird how musicians are musicians, and also musical listeners are looking for things that are broken and weird. I mean, maybe not all the people. I'm conscious that some people don't like weird and broken things, but if you think of it, like the guitar distortion is something that, if you go by the book, shouldn't exist, shouldn't happen, and people stumbled upon it and embraced it and made it a thing, and that thing snowballed into a huge culture and everything. So it's kind of magical when you think of it.
I think music is one of the most magical things that we as humans have the ability to tap into.
And weird,
You know,
because it's the most.
it's so
It's the
weird.
most. I mean, except when you're saying stuff in your music, but music itself, it's so abstract, and why would you listen to that stuff? It's so weird as an occupation to listen to music.
Well, I've been recording a lot lately myself, not necessarily like in the traditional way that I have in the past, but I've been doing a lot of just setting up microphones and a whole bunch of pedals and improvising things and just kind of seeing what comes out.
Mhm.
Most of the time it's complete and utter garbage that I don't ever want anybody to ever hear. But occasionally there's some pieces that have come out that I was really really happy with and really kind of like, oh, that was very satisfying to do.
And you were,
But I don't know, I don't think I could replicate them
yeah.
though, because of the signal chain, and I don't
But you were
remember exactly
you
what
were
I
recording
did.
noises with the microphone, or you were recording yourself playing, or
I was recording
oh,
myself
okay,
playing.
yeah.
Yeah, like I for a long time, and a lot of listeners will know this, my nightly routine is to come out here just after we put the little ones down for bed, and just before, the adults get to hang out for the evening and talk about, adult
Mhm.
things instead of kid things. I'll come out here and set up some wacky signal
Mhm.
chain and just play, and that's kind of how I unwind for the evening. But I never really recorded very much of it. I never I never really gave much thought to how all those years of doing that has changed me as a player in a dramatic way. And until I started noticing, I just started noticing myself, and so I set it all up, and I've been recording some pieces, and I put a few out on Instagram here and there and a few other things. Most of them are never going to see the light of day. But it's interesting to go back and listen to how much I've changed as a player, and just how I do things now differently than 5 years ago. I don't know where I'm going with this train of thought. I really don't.
But
But
I think it's really weird when you go back. I mean, I have that feeling a lot. I haven't really recorded like music and like purposely music in a long time, because I've been quite busy, and the only music I do is when I do some demos and things like that. But when I sometimes go back to stuff I recorded some years ago, I'm sometimes so surprised and really weirded out as to, wait, did I do that thing? And wait, how? Wait, what was I thinking? And how did I do that? And what was the process? And how can you come up with something like that? And that's so. I mean, I'm not saying that I did like amazing stuff, but just stuff that surprises me, where you don't recognize yourself, and you don't recognize whatever was the moment and the process that led you to record it. And I think that's quite crazy, and it's also daunting, because it I feel lately I felt very like blocked, because I don't have a lot of time to dedicate to music, and when I try it, I tend to to put a lot of pressure on it because I need to be efficient, and so it never works out. So it's never really very nice. And listening back to things that you did before that sometimes feel like they just sprung out of the nothing and became something. It's very intimidating to think that you would try and do that again. But I think what you really need to do, and I need to do, is just put yourself in that position that things will happen, and things will happen eventually. They have to.
Yeah, I think that they will happen, and I also think one thing that's been really helpful for me as an older player is, or not older per se, but like somebody who's been playing for quite a while now, is that realizing that there's a right way and a wrong way to do things if you're trying to cover or practice something specific. If you're trying to nail something, then there's a right and a wrong way to do it. But when you're playing your own improvised pieces, or you're just like kind of zoning out and just wanting to create, there's not a wrong way to do it. And that's actually been really helpful for me. In the past, I'd be like, well, I'm not going to put my fingers there because I'm not 100% sure if that's the right place to go. And now I'm just like, whatever, I'm going to put my fingers wherever they land on the fretboard, and if it sounds, hopefully it sounds right.
Yeah, I mean,
and so
especially if you're just sitting, it's weird that it's so that you get so so intimidated that you don't try stuff out, because if you're in front of an audience, that's something else. You have like a real-time pressure, and you feel like you have to deliver something. And I really admire people that can just improvise out of thin air and create stuff on the spot. And I've tried it a few times, and sometimes it works like magically. You're in the moment, and then stuff happens, and sometimes it's just crap. but I think it's great if you take that chance. But if you're sitting at home, you should be able to just do stuff. But I don't know why it's so hard. I think we're just too busy with all the stuff that we think we have to do.
It's hard, and part of what has made me a little less weary of it is just the constant doing. I record. I don't record every day, but the last probably 4 weeks I record 4 out of the 7 days of the week. I record something. Whether that ever sees the light of day is neither here nor there. It's almost like the process of just doing it is making it easier, if that makes any sense. Just simply the repetitive nature of like having a microphone set up, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna grab 4 or 5 pedals and see what happens, and just kind of doing that on a regular basis. And most of the stuff that comes out is no good. It's not something that I'm proud of, and therefore it just gets saved to the hard drive and will never see the light of day. But some of it is turning into some Instagram videos, and some of it's turning into some other things. And so I would say, if you're trying to relieve the pressure, maybe just make a set time. Like, okay, today at whatever time it is right now, I'm going to go out and play for a little bit, and just do it and record it, listen back. It will probably suck. But eventually there's going to be one that doesn't suck. And those just make all of the effort worth it, in my opinion. That's what the stage I'm in right now.
I think that's really great. It's really great. But if you don't give it a chance, then nothing happens. If you allow it to happen, then it can happen. I think that's the thing. You have to be ready when it strikes.
When the muse strikes.
And I think most of the people that seem to be very prolific in any kind of area are people that are just ready all the time, and they produced probably an insane amount of not so nice things of fecal matter. But among that, they will also produce incredible things, and I think that's what you got to do.
That's what music's all about, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
I think so. I don't know. I feel like we just solved all the problems, though. We solved all of them, right?
I think we did. At least, I think 67% of them.
67% of the world's
I'd
problems.
say I'd say 67. Yeah,
That's pretty good for an hour-long podcast.
that's a good.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Lots of podcasters have been trying to fix the world's problems for longer than that, and none of them have gotten this close. So I'd say job well done in my opinion.
Yeah, but they still need to do it because you never know. We were lucky.
This is true.
We're just lucky.
This is true.
Yep.
So we're coming into the home stretch, and I have a few classic questions I need to wrap this episode up with. One of them being, what is your favorite Boss pedal?
Oh, I haven't had too many of them, to be honest. I think. Oh yeah, I had some overdrives, but I wasn't really convinced. I have a CH1 chorus, which was my first pedal I ever had, and I still have it, which I traded. Haha! Full circle for that first guitar I ever bought.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah,
There you
I
go.
traded it for that bus chorus with a friend, and that I still have. I'm not super fond of chorus. It's not something I use a lot, but I really like that pedal. It was really nice, and the color is so nice. But it's not so nice anymore. I think I left it in the sun
Oh,
for too long, and it has become more of like a bluish turquoise. What is how do you call that? Do you say turquoise in English?
we call it turquoise over here.
Turquoise, yeah. So the color has shifted a bit. It's not as nice, but it looks a lot more vintagey now. Not like I remember it.
It's been relict.
Yep.
Relict pedals. They're coming back.
Yeah.
They're coming back.
Yeah, but I liked when it was baby blue.
Yeah, that is a nice looking pedal from the factory.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one would be, this is your chance to put up a billboard. Where can everybody find you? What do you want people to know? And is there just anything you'd like to tell a whole bunch of people right now? Because here's your chance.
Okay. People can find me on Instagram under, what am I called? DroloFx. And on my website, which is davidrolo.com. And you said what I want to tell people.
Yeah, tell people. Anything.
I think people need to heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and probably for the entire human race, I'd say. It's time.
It's time. Let's do it.
Yep.
I like that. That's very good.
Yep.
It's a similar sentiment that I try to share when the setting makes sense. So thank you. That was very nice. That's exactly the kind of thing. That's exactly the kind of thing I'm shooting for with that question. And not everybody grabs a hold. So that was nice.
Cool.
All right, last question, and this is a big one. This is one that people tend to wrestle with and have a hard time with, but you're sitting down, so I think we'll be okay. What kind of pizza do you like?
I like our pizza.
Your pizza?
Yeah, we do something that would probably not be considered a pizza by many Italian standards, but it's really good. We make our own dough, and it basically consists of tomato sauce, a fecal matter ton of anchovies, some
Okay.
some ham, and we don't use the regular cheese that normally is. I think, what is it? Is it mozzarella
Correct.
or
Yeah, mozzarella usually.
yeah? We use Parmigiano,
Ooh.
and that's the thing. Yeah, a bit of oregano, Parmigiano, and just a sprinkle of olive oil, and it's just perfect.
That actually sounds pretty good.
Yep.
I have to say that anchovies I have not had a lot of experience with. So the times I have ate anchovies, I thought they were a little much for me. And I like fish. I like fishy things. But I was like, this is a little too much salt. So, but that combination you're talking about sounds pretty good. So,
Try it.
I'm intrigued. I'm an open-minded guy, so we'll have to get until you start talking about pineapples, and then we've got to end the conversation. But well, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast and hang out with us. And this has been a lot of fun. So thank you.
Well, it's been really great for me too, and thanks a lot for having me. Really.
Yes, absolutely. We'll have to do it again sometime. Maybe in person if you can ever get yourself over to this side of the world, or I can get myself to that side of the world. Either way.
Yeah, definitely. You're welcome, and I can make you some pizza.
Oh, now you're talking. I can see the
Yep.
shop. This is going to be even cooler.
Mhm.
Another
Yep.
reason I need to go to Belgium.
You see,
On top of all the
and
wonderful,
it's not only to Belgium, but like the farthest remote fecal mattery place that you can find in Belgium.
like as far away in the hills of Belgium. Oh, this sounds so up
where
my alley.
nothing happens.
I really like the sound of that. Actually,
Yeah.
It sounds really nice.
We sometimes drive to our like the main city in our commune, because there's an elevator in the town hall. That's the only elevator in the whole area, and that's like when you go up in that elevator, you really feel it, like you're doing something special.
So you make a trip into town to ride the elevator?
Yeah.
Okay.
We go to the library is actually on the last floor of the town hall, and we go there with an elevator, and that's like an event.
Now, some people might think that's silly, but I actually can relate to that because here where I live, which is not technically in Portland, it's in Oregon City, which is just outside of Portland, that we have one of the only working municipal elevators in the country. So there's an elevator that literally connects them down like Main Street, like all of the shops.
Oh yeah.
Then a bunch of houses up top on the hill. They're a literal elevator that you go in. It's a historic thing. You can look it up
Oh, so cool.
if you're curious. And I actually get
yeah.
really excited to ride the elevator, so I can understand. I'm not making fun.
You shouldn't. It's a serious matter.
Don't you tease about it. We take our elevators very seriously around here. Which we're joking about it, but like an elevator is a serious matter, because if an elevator's busted, whoever's in there is in they got serious problems. So elevators are no joke.
Yeah. Don't joke with elevators.
Well, that seems like a pretty good note to wrap up on. What do you say?
I think that's perfect.
Don't joke with elevators. Check out davidrolo.com. And until next time, folks, good luck and good times.
Bye.
Bye. Well, that was just fantastic, wasn't it? At least it was for me. I hope it was for you too. If you need more, like I said in the intro, there's another portion of this conversation over on Patreon, so you can hit that up if that's your thing at patreon.com/tonemob, and you can check out the various levels of things over there. And what else? What else for the outro? Oh, of course. If you like the show, if you enjoy the show, and this is something that helps you throughout your week, then I would love it if you could do something for me. If you're thinking about making a purchase on that platform, if you could just use the link tonemob.com/reverb. That's tonemob.com/reverb. Anything you do on the website, any purchases you make, even simply if this is the first time you've heard of Reverb somehow, I'm not sure how that's possible, but if it is happening, even if you just sign up through that link, tonemob.com/reverb, it helps keep some wins in the sails of this weird little ship that's flying around the digital globe. And it doesn't cost you anything extra, but a portion of that sale will come back and help support the show and keep it going. And you get the product you want, and everybody's happy because everyone's buying gear. I mean, let's be honest. If you're listening to this show, you're buying gear. You might as well do it through tonemob.com/reverb and help everything keep going. All right. I don't think I have anything else too important, and you probably have other things to get to. So I will sign off for now. I'll be with you next week with a fresh episode as always. And thank you so much for listening, especially to this point. You are a real champion. All right. Talk to you later. Bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.